You are watching DHTV from California State University, Dominguez Hills.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, thank you for quieting down so quickly. I appreciate that. My name is Bill Allen. I have the privilege of serving as CEO of the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, and on behalf of all my colleagues on the staff and board of the LADC, it's our pleasure to welcome you all here this morning to the latest in our Future Forum series events, this one on the exciting topic of the future of healthcare personalization. And first of all, how about this fantastic space, these Hatch spaces? I'm so grateful to the developers behind this. I'll talk about them in a minute, but it's really, I think, appropriate that we get out and about in LA County to see wonderful physical spaces like this that are so important to the development of our economy. It's obviously a fascinating topic with which I think all of us are quite intrigued. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers here this morning who are going to share their insights with you, but we hope that you'll also participate in this conversation. I believe we have a hashtag here, hashtag LAEDC Forum on the screen that will allow you to participate both during this Future Forum and afterwards to help us broaden the conversation even beyond today, because we're all here to help grow this industry cluster, and your comments, your questions, your insights, what you took away from today's conversations are important to spreading the word. You may have noticed we didn't print program books for this morning's forum. That's out of our desire to help preserve and sustain our environment, but we did provide a digital program with our speaker lineup. Again, I think there's a URL on the backside of your name badges, perhaps right up here as well, that you can use to access the speakers' full biographies that are available, and they are a very impressive group of expert presenters this morning, so I hope you'll take a chance to do that. Just briefly, I always like to remind folks who may not be familiar with the LADC that our mission is to collectively advance opportunity and prosperity for all of the residents of the LA region. We emphasize the word collectively because it means we need all of you to do this. No one organization, no one sector of our society can really advance the interests of all of our 10 million neighbors here in LA County, but together we can, and we really must. Our approach is focusing on the 7 goals of the LA County Strategic Plan for Economic Development, which is being led in our organization by our team from Propel LA, led by Marianne Haverhill. I think Marianne, wave your hand, is in the back of the room. She and her team are guiding hundreds of stakeholders who are helping advance the 4 corners of that plan. There were 7 aspirational goals in the plan that were designed in collaboration with our government, education, labor, environmental, and other community partners, all meant to help create a more vibrant, more diverse, more sustainable, and importantly, more inclusive economy. There are opportunities for each and every one of you to engage in the advancement of those strategic objectives that will help us reach those aspirational goals, and we hope you will. The plan's second goal calls specifically for strengthening our leading export-oriented industry sectors, our industry clusters. One of the most important of these, of course, is our biopharmaceuticals, medical devices, and health sciences cluster, which is growing rapidly in our region and is an exciting new contributor of both economic opportunity and overall regional prosperity, and one that needs our continued attention to realize its full potential. Today's forum topic is on an important aspect of the evolution of this cluster, the future of healthcare personalization. This forum will bring together this morning for you leading experts in data-driven medicine, virtual reality, medical wearables, and we're going to talk about workforce development for this cluster as well. Our experts will take a closer look at innovations in healthcare maintenance, diagnostics, and the future of how patients are treated in a more personalized way. But as I said before, we're fortunate to be having this conversation in a really exciting new space available to emerging companies in this cluster. Hatch Spaces, located here within the LA Bioscience Hub corridor. These are spaces specifically designed for emerging life science companies, ready to hatch from incubators and academic environments into our regional economy. I want to thank Alan Glass and Howard Kozlov, who are standing at the back of the room. Raise your hand, guys. They're the visionaries behind this development. They have also told me that if any of you would like to take a little tour of the facility after this morning's presentation, you're welcome to do so. So stick around. I'm going to do it. I hope you'll join us. It's really exciting to see the tenants they already have and the plans for additional tenants. And there are opportunities for your companies or those that your colleagues are involved in, invested in. Please spread the word about this exciting space, which is going to play a key role in helping us grow this important cluster of our economy. Before we meet our first speaker, our keynote speaker, I want to introduce our longtime partner who had the foresight in bringing these future forums to you. California State University Dominguez Hills has been our presenting sponsor since the inception of this series of future forums. They are a very forward-looking institution. They're a diverse, welcoming community of learners and educators collaborating to change lives and our communities for the better. With strong academic programs, dedicated faculty, supportive staff, and many campus amenities, CSU Dominguez Hills is committed to connecting students to high-quality and transformative education while providing our communities with the vital resource we need for diverse talent and leadership needed to thrive today and tomorrow. Thomas A. Parham was appointed president of CSU Dominguez Hills in March 2018, having previously served as vice chancellor for student affairs and an adjunct faculty member at the University of California, Irvine. Prior to these positions, Dr. Parham also held an appointment on the faculty at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. He's a nationally known psychologist, author of 6 books, more than 45 journal articles and book chapters, a fierce advocate for students with an unwavering commitment to student achievement. Dr. Parham is an active member of our community, contributing his talents in the areas of social advocacy, community uplift, youth empowerment, a significant partner in our work to collectively advance prosperity and opportunity for all of our residents in this region. Please join me in welcoming and saying happy birthday to the 11th president of California State University Dominguez Hills, Dr. Thomas Parham.
That birthday is just a vicious rumor. Let me say thank you, Bill, and first of all, acknowledge what an important strategic partnership this is. The LAEDC and California State University Dominguez Hills exert a profoundly reciprocal relationship to one another, so that success in one domain facilitates success in the other. And I'm of the mind that we can't be successful as a university, nor can this business community be successful unless we are inextricably linked. One of my heroes, Dr. King, reminds us that we are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied to a single garment of destiny. I think that describes the relationship that we have with the LAEDC very, very well. So I say good morning to you. It was Thomas Jefferson who wrote, "Our greatest happiness does not depend on the condition of life in which chance has placed us, but is always a result of good conscience, good health, occupation, and freedom in all just pursuits." Interesting words, even as we fast forward a couple hundred years, about why health is so important. So as I thank the Economic Development Corporation for hosting today's forum, it's always exciting to learn about new healthcare innovations and systems with the potential to both better our lives, to increase access to timely data, particularly when it enables us to be more proactive about improving our health. It enables us to trust the integrity of the results that we receive, and it improves success of healthcare professionals and lives of their patients. Our university has been a partner with LAEDC for, 4 years now, and has been the sponsor of this Future Forum since partnership began. And it's a strong strategic partnership that, like this, that are creating, I think, real change and prosperity in this LA County region and Southern California region. I think we extend even outside of the Southern California area. And it's really a challenge to top LAEDC's ability to consolidate knowledge by bringing together such notable intellectuals from really all sectors of a thriving workforce. Because all of us, in some cases, are intent on addressing what we believe are the most salient and interesting issues of our day. Now, higher education, for those who don't know, helps drive vitality and innovation in all industries, and in California, we benefit from the largest system of public higher education in the nation. The California State University system educates some 490,000 students. We take a backseat to nobody in that we are the largest system of public higher education in all of this nation across our 23 campuses. We are very, very proud of that. That sounds like an applause line to me. Right? And it's really our faculty and our staff through their co-curricular engagement that is really engaging research in every field imaginable, and our students that gain the knowledge and experience from that faculty to graduate and go out and make their mark on the world. And not just a local world, but really a global world. We teach our students that you cannot relate to a global world with just a local identity. So even as I grew up in Los Angeles, in some cases not far from where we sit today, it is always a reminder to me, as much as I've traveled the globe, that you cannot relate to a global world or global issues with just a local identity. But Cal State University Dominguez Hills, more particular, is a significant role player in this regard. One, because 65% of our students graduate and they live within within 25 miles radius of the campus. Now that's a phenomenal piece because we are graduating a workforce that basically stays home. So it is very, very important to the region. So local industries and organizations collaborate with us, right, and our alumni, including particularly in healthcare. And since we're talking about really healthcare today, we are a healthcare-focused university. And I heard somebody describe us this morning as a liberal arts place, whatever, and we are that absolutely. But let me also peel back the onion a little bit in my brief few minutes and share with you a little bit about what we do. Because when you think about healthcare personalization, I want you to consider the work, for example, that an occupational therapist does. Anybody ever had to go to an occupational therapist, right? Physical therapist? So when you think about that, I'm sure you'll all agree that it doesn't get much more personal than that, yes? So at Cal State University Dominguez Hills, our Masters of Occupational Therapy program is one of the best in the state. Who knew that, right? Who even knew we even had an occupational therapy program, right? Lots of us who didn't. But I've got some new and exciting news to share with you when we're talking about taking occupational therapy to the next level. Last month, this is fresh off the wire, thanks to the exceptional work and leadership of our faculty and staff in our Masters of Occupational Therapy program, the California legislature, and Governor Newsom, who just signed the bill about 10 days ago, they passed Assembly Bill 829, making the California State University, Dominguez Hills, the first public university in Southern California to offer a doctorate degree in occupational therapy, the first in Southern California. Now, just offering a doctorate degree alone is an extremely rare thing in the CSU system, let alone for Cal State University Dominguez Hills, because we'll be sending doctors out into the work world to try to support and improve health care for patients. And that's exciting news for our entire campus, but I also need to mention that our exceptional orthotics and prosthetics program, who knew we had one of those, right? A couple of you. Our orthotics and aesthetics program in our education center that's in Los Alamitos focuses on caring for patients who have neuromuscular and musculoskeletal disorders and partial or total loss of limbs. Now, why is that important for healthcare? Because you'll see a lot of pictures of ways in which we service those brave men and women who protect our freedoms every day and the wounded warriors who come home who've had amputations, et cetera. But beyond our wounded warriors, think about the demographic we represent right here in this LA basin. When you have, think of healthcare, heart disease is rampant, obesity is rampant, diabetes is rampant. And with diabetes then comes, right, the amputation of limbs. Where else do we provide support but in that, right, orthotics and prosthetics right field, we happen to have, right, a very signature program in that particular space. Why is that important? It is one of 12, let me say that again, 12 accredited master's degree programs in the nation educating certified practitioners. You have one of 12 right here in this LA Basin at California State University, Dominguez Hills. As I continue, our College of Health, Human Services, and Nursing houses our university's top 3 marquee programs, all with greater than 98% on-time graduation and 100% national board certification pass rates. That's pretty impressive for anybody to say. So I'm not just a snobbish president up there touting our horn. I want you to know that we are preparing the workforce of tomorrow. We have a master's in science in orthotics and prosthetics, as I mentioned, a master's in science in occupational therapy that we've talked about, but we also have clinical laboratory science, right? The only BS degree program in the entire California State University system, when we go from San Diego in the south all the way up to Humboldt in the north. Clinical laboratory science is the only program in that college that receives $300,000 in scholarship funding for student internship placement, a testament to its high-quality program. The School of Nursing is the state's oldest and largest online nursing undergraduate program. Who knew that? Right? Who knew we even had a nursing program, let alone one of the oldest and largest online nursing programs in the state? And wonder why we received some of the best rankings out of U.S. News and World Report just recently in 2018. So needless to say, we're proud to be significant contributors to your exciting industry and very pleased to be co-sponsoring today's event. So our university and the California State University system generally, we want to be partners in the cutting edge with all of you. And we're really a perfect fit, I think, because it is higher education where new technology is embraced, utilized by healthcare educators, and engaged on a regular basis by students, the future practitioners in the field. So there's also on college campuses where technology is becoming the topic of critical discourse and analysis. So when we think about healthcare and all the new innovations, college and university campuses are ways in which we need to be talking about those things. And at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, I can assure you that our faculty and students will be enthusiastic benefactors of all the information and the innovations that we share and you'll share with us today. Lastly, I'll close by saying to folk, because Bill asked me if I would remind folk about this, we are a place that is on the move. In my, a year and a quarter tenure there on campus, I've tried to invite our folk to dream about what's possible and not simply settle for what's traditional or predictable. And so we are dreaming. And part of that dreaming was to be able to put together a master plan, a blueprint that we just had an opportunity to present before the trustees of the California State University system last Tuesday and Wednesday. And with unanimous support and approval from that board, we now have a master plan approved that is the blueprint that will allow us to now get down on the ground and into the weeds and be able to bring the kind of innovation that you demand that we put together as an institution of higher learning in this region. So we're very pleased to be doing that. And with that, we'll have not only a new science and innovation building we're about to open up in November of this year. It's about 98% complete. It is the first new academic building we've built on that campus with any portion of state funds in 25 years. And it is a game changer. Dean Nguyen is here who will, his College of Business and Public Policy will be housed in our Innovation Instruction Building. We've broken ground on and the slab is poured. We have new residence halls coming. We are literally transforming that campus. Why? Because at Dominguez Hills, we transform lives that will later transform America. With that, I'll stop and say good morning. It's my pleasure to be here and to co-host this forum. Bill, thank you very much.
Dr. Parham, we are so fortunate to have such a visionary and energetic and talented leader as you leading this important institution. Cal State Dominguez Hills is such a critical partner in developing the talent that we need to power each of our industry clusters here. Thank you for enlightening us this morning, for inspiring us, for sharing with us the specific degrees that are so relevant this morning and the vision you have now with the new master plan for building out the rest of the campus to realize so many more opportunities opportunities for your students in our region, from around our region who come to your university, and for your partnership in these forums and in growing this economy for the benefit of everybody here. We're honored to have you. And by the way, we're honored to be acknowledging with our highest award for educational leadership, California State University, Dominguez Hills, under the visionary leadership of Dr. Thomas Parham, at our 24th annual Eddy Awards, which will take place on November 7. We hope all of you will come out and support the great work of this university, the great work of the LAEDC, as we celebrate those leaders and leadership institutions who are helping us collectively advance opportunity and prosperity for all of our region's residents. Let me just say a couple of words about this industry sector, and you all have a little flyer that says a little more, so I'll be very brief. But the biopharmaceuticals, medical devices, and health science cluster in our region is growing rapidly here in LA County. Much of the work in this sector is focused on healthcare personalization. Research, innovation, company formation, and investment are accelerating, particularly along key corridors of our geography, particularly along the East-West Biotech Corridor, running roughly from Amgen on the west, along the 101 and 210 and 10 corridors, out to Caltech and Gilead Sciences and Cal Poly Pomona, but also along a north-south corridor from Santa Clarita in the San Fernando Valley through key nodes at UCLA and the Lundquist Institute, formerly known as LA Biomed, and on down to UCI and so many of the exciting companies in Orange County. A recent report from Biocom on the economic impact of this industry notes more than 190,000 jobs attributable to the life science industry here in LA County alone, spread among more than 2,600 firms operating here. Together, these establishments exported more than $9 billion of products around the world. These are foreign exports in medical devices, diagnostic equipment, biopharmaceuticals, biorenewables, and other areas. As you'll hear today, there are also a wide variety of employment opportunities in this industry. Different educational attainment levels are represented in the industry. This is an industry which provide well-paying jobs for people with college degrees and even for people without college degrees. You're going to hear a little more about that this morning from our workforce development speaker on this subject, because again, we work so hard to advance the interests of these industries because they create pathways for people who acquire the knowledge and skills they need at places like Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, and for others who acquire skills in other aspects of our educational ecosystem here to participate. But first, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, who represents one of the most innovative firms in this cluster. Nicole Elliott is the key account manager with SOPHiA GENETICS, recognized by MIT Technology Review as one of the 50 smartest companies, and having raised over $140 million since the business was founded in 2011, SOPHiA GENETICS applies artificial intelligence to DNA sequencing that helps healthcare professionals make sense of clinical data. They currently have 990 hospitals in 82 different countries using their technology to help patients. To tell us a little bit more about their company and the exciting innovations underway there, please help me welcome SOPHiA GENETICS Key Account Manager Nicole Elliott as our keynote speaker this morning. Welcome, Nicole.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and represent SOPHiA. And we are very appreciative that the LAEDC reached out to us so that we could inform you a little bit more about who we are and what we do here at SOPHiA. So that will be my goal here today as we move through my presentation. I don't think I have the clicker. Is this it? Great. So SOPHiA, our name, I always like to start off with that. In ancient Greek means knowledge and wisdom. That is where and what we find at our core as we, as a company and a whole, look to democratize data-driven medicine together. To speak a little bit about who we are and where we're located, we were, as Bill said, founded in 2011 in Geneva, Switzerland. And as of recently, 2 years ago, have now a headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts, and are growing our team rapidly every day. We are a little over 350 employees currently, with employee presence in over 30 countries globally, worldwide. And 60 of us now here, and I have a few of my colleagues in the audience, are in the US, and we look to expand those numbers not only to over 100 by the end of the year, but the concentration here on the West Coast and LA County is growing as well. Part of what is at our DNA really is security and data privacy. So I always like to mention we are GDPR ready, fully HIPAA compliant. We have 2 ISO certifications in medical device management and both innovation security. So to take you into a little bit of what our applications do, SOPHiA is a software as a service, and we have 3 core areas of concentration in radiomics, genomics, and clinical trials specifically. I love this slide because it really gives a footprint of our presence worldwide. And the goal of SOPHiA and the vision to democratize data-driven medicine is really to build a community that can harness the expertise and the power of the genomic analysis and information that is available. As you can see here on this map, we are present, and actually it needs to be updated, in nearly 1,000 institutions worldwide. This number grows literally every day, where we are building a community that is analyzing genomic samples and interpreting this data and harnessing the power of what comes from that information on a daily basis in over 81 countries. And what that means for us here particularly is if a person that is perhaps, say, of Turkish descent is seen and evaluated here in LA County, and they come up with a molecular variant or genomic variant that is unfamiliar to that healthcare provider, the provider then, through the use of SOPHiA, is able to leverage the global community and look into various subsets or demographics of our global network to help better identify the root cause of that genomic alteration and disease so that they can better treat and provide better outcomes and prognosis for these patients. Diving into what this genomic analysis is capable of doing, I'll talk you a little bit through the workflow and how we're standardizing and bringing this information to institutions on a daily basis. So the goal and the questions clinicians, researchers, providers ask themselves are how do we really spot and identify these relevant genomic alterations? So the human genome was first analyzed in 2003. We've come a long way since then, and it's evolving every day from very small targeted analysis and panels to very large panels such as whole genome or whole exome, which encompasses over 19,000 disease states and or conditions. Those genes then, as you can imagine, if there's variance within that, there's hundreds of thousands of alterations that can come up, and researchers and clinicians need to be able to quickly pinpoint the relevant variants that are impacting the patient's actual disease, condition, phenotype, et cetera. This gives a great breakdown of really where our core focus is currently. As we grow, the numbers change. 75% of our analysis are coming from oncology or cancer patients, and the other 25% are made up of rare diseases. The SOPHiA platform itself analyzes a clinical sample 1 in every 4 minutes and has seen over 380,000 genomic profiles. And that's a pretty outstanding number when you especially look at the commercial labs here in the US and other larger entities that are doing this on a centralized laboratory basis. And you can imagine it's learning from each sample it analyzes every time that it's put into SOPHiA. So this is a good graphic here of the workflow, essentially of where SOPHiA fits into the healthcare institution. So as next-gen sequencing has been adopted, that sequencing data, the raw genomic analysis that comes from that next-gen sequencing is uploaded into our platform, where SOPHiA then detects, analyze, and pre-classifies that data. So I like to always mention, and we speak about the fact that we're not, even though this is machine learning, we are not removing a human element for this. So this is where that healthcare researcher or provider then statistician will look at that information and drill it down and be able to focus on the relevant variants to that specific patient and that case profile to build a report for their healthcare providers to give them better ideas of the best treatment regimens available for the patient. It's kind of hard to see this one from far away, actually. But the ideal here really is the ability to filter that genomic alteration or those variants. So you have your biomolecular markers that will first come out, your SNVs, indels, CNVs, that are going to essentially rank those variants and those genomic alterations. Then we can look at various different guidelines and then also tie in the community. So every time a sample is analyzed through SOPHiA, because of that human element, we do have the clinician or the researcher essentially flag that variant and classify it as to what they're agreeing with compared to the data that comes out of SOPHiA and what guidelines are saying. So you also, again, are able to leverage the dynamics there that the professional, the healthcare provider or professional themselves are classifying. And then ultimately, you can also look at familial variant analysis, so you can take in familial history and the genomics of relatives within the family. And additionally build out certain phenotype and virtual panels from there to drill it down. So one of the benefits of SOPHiA and the vision of democratizing data-driven medicine, when this platform was built, when our founders began understanding the idea of taking this NGS data, they wanted to make sure that it was technology agnostic. So it's not compatible with any one company or service. We work very hard to make sure that we're optimizing results for many applications. We're compatible now with over 200, so that again, regardless of the technology that each lab or institution is using, that we can provide and put that power back in front of them regardless of the equipment that they're using. So ultimately, the key benefits of being able to use SOPHiA to understand that root cause of disease and filter out those relevant variants is obviously to pinpoint a targeted analysis to essentially save time and save money. Traditionally, these types of data subsets can take weeks, months to analyze. SOPHiA can do it in as little as 3 to 4 hours. So we really are streamlining that workflow to offer actionable insights for healthcare providers. So moving into our second area of core innovation and our application of SOPHiA is radiomics. And this is evolving for us. It is utilized more so right now in Europe. We are piloting this with various institutions here in the US. It's very, very up and coming, innovative technology. Recently at many of the cancer conferences, it's getting a lot of traction when we look at radiomics and how do we visualize and interpret the growth of tumors. So what we do here is we're able to, it kind of shows the streamlined workflow, but you're taking imaging data, right, from MRIs, CT scans, you're taking that various biological data, you're taking that clinical data, you're feeding it into the SOPHiA radiomics platform, and then essentially there you are able to improve the stratification and treatment recommendations of the patients and also monitor and predict the result of that disease. So the 3D viewer, and I have an actual visual to take you through this, the 3D viewer, the 3D segmentation tool, the Oncoboard, the radiomics board, all of those are features within the platform itself that allow you to visualize this. And an example is here where we're going to play the 3D viewer. You can see here this is a set of lungs, and this in the blue area there is a tumor that's being measured by SOPHiA itself. So it's taking these measurements, it's taking these different types of views and quantitatively pulling the data from the tumor itself and combining it with the other data subsets that have been added into SOPHiA to give better predictive measurements and algorithms of what this tumor growth or decline would look like and mean for the patient as it particularly relates to treatment of their disease. So here are the key benefits, and I think we heard this morning really about the timing is short and turnaround time. A lot of these patients are very ill. They need to know quickly how to treat their disease and how to survive, especially from cancer. So this is allowing us, again, to aggregate more data and stratify those data subsets so that you have a more analytical view and follow-up for the performance of the various therapies and treatments that these patients are on, and also then are improving those prediction models through the radiomic platform to encourage and inform the global community as this is adopted. And then last, I'll speak briefly about our clinical trial match with SOPHiA. So this is where essentially we are looking to bring the right clinical trials to patients. So as you can imagine with the global community, you can specifically, as we're analyzing these genomic variations, you can drill it down to a specific disease state, let's say lung cancer here in this example. We're going to refine it down to a specific variant found on a specific exon in a specific gene, and then the clinicians are able to match patients with eligible clinical trials and drug therapies that they can be matched up with to follow throughout these clinical trials. So we're engaging the global research community on a worldwide level. We're bringing more therapy options to patients and ultimately increasing the trial efficacy and efficiency for these researchers. So that, in a nutshell, speaks to the power of SOPHiA's combined approach towards real-time epidemiology. And I, again, thank you guys for having us here and looking forward to representing SOPHiA on the panel as well for your questions.
Wasn't that a thrilling presentation? Genuinely exciting about the future of this industry. What an extraordinary company. So glad to have you operating here in our region, and so glad that you and your partners all around the world are leading such incredible advancements in this science. Next up, we have a terrific panel of experts for you. And to introduce them and moderate their conversation, we needed an expert himself to get the most out of them. And so we've invited our moderator for this morning, who is a strategic advisor and mentor to early-stage health tech and med tech companies at Scale LA and the Cedars-Sinai Accelerator, where he helps entrepreneurs bring their technologies to market. He was the former CEO of Golden Shore Medical Group and held a variety of executive positions at Molina Healthcare, including Chief Strategy Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, and Head of Investor Relations. Would you join me in welcoming our moderator this morning, Mr. Juan Jose Orellana.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, LAEDC and Cal State University Dominguez Hills. Good morning, everyone. As Bill mentioned, I spent quite a bit of time in my career in the payer and the provider space. So the payer space is really health insurance companies and health plans. The provider space, we're talking about primary care doctors, specialists, and hospitals. And the overarching mantra many times for these organizations is to get closer to the patient. And by getting closer to the patient, I don't mean, rubbing a boo-boo on your elbow that you might have. It's really about identifying the pain points that patients have in their overall healthcare journey, from pre-diagnosis to treatment to recovery, and fixing those pain points. So where these type of healthcare organizations fall short is that they don't have a core competency at doing this, right? They haven't made the right investments, they don't have the right people, or the nature of their business doesn't allow for that. So maybe they have an administrative function rather than a patient-facing function. And that's why I'm excited to be here today and to be up here on the stage or next to the podium with innovators and entrepreneurs that have a true core competency in this field, personalization of healthcare. They have actually identified a pain point in that continuum and developed a solution for that. So before we invite our panelists up, I just wanted to keep a few things in mind as you hear some of the questions up here. The first one, and I think it was covered by Bill as well as Dr. Parham, is there is a growing health tech, med tech, biotech community locally. And you'll get a chance to hear of some of the participants in that space today, and that's very important. The second thing is, what are the required investments in people, process, and technology that are needed to continue to foster this growth in this local community? And the last thing is, we heard several times that technology is changing fast, that timing is of the essence, and that also translates into the type of workforce and the type of training that we need to have for individuals to be able to address this. So with that, I'm going to invite our panelists up. The first one, and I have to read them in this order. The first one is Elias Arjun from BioStrat. Second one is Cav Canavan from Focus Motions. Third one is Nicole Elliott, who we just met from Sophia Genetics. Jessica Kim from the LEDC. And Vangelis Lumpuridis from Applied VR. If his name is too complex, he also goes for Dr. B, so he should be very helpful. So real quick, I know we've heard from Nicole and Sophia Genetics, but we'll give you guys 1 minute real quick to just introduce yourselves and the company you're with.
Okay, so my name is, as we said, Elias Arjun. First off, I'd like to thank the LAADC for just having me on the panel today, and thank you all for being here as well. And so our company, BioStrap, is a wearable that is originally comes from the medical space, and we measure 4 key biomarkers. We measure heart rate, respiration rate, HRV, for those of you familiar with heart rate variability, which we might get into a little bit later, and SpO2 on a wrist-worn device. So you don't see a lot of SpO2 devices on the wrist, and we're focusing on cloud computing and clinical grade data. So a little bit of a different experience than what you may be familiar with, and maybe we'll get into the key differences when we have more time.
Hi, my name is Cav Canavan. You can call me Cav. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of a company called Focus Motion, and what we do is we basically build a connected recovery system for orthopedic surgery. What it does is it combines the use of a smart brace with an application and a dashboard system that allows the patient to provide us quantitative data about their recovery, so their range of motion, flexion, extension on a daily basis as they're recovering, and then we also pull in qualitative data like patient-reported outcomes, PROMIS score, VAS pain scale with the application, and all that is pushed to the physician and to the care team so they can make interventions as necessary on a daily basis. Right now, we're currently a reimbursable product. We recently received the reimbursement certification, which is fantastic, to be used for pre-op as well as post-op recovery.
Great. Nicole Elliott, Sophia Genetics.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. I'm Vangelis Lumpuridis. I'm the Chief Design Officer at Applied VR. We're pioneering the next generation of digital therapeutics based on the forthcoming technology of virtual reality. That is a powerful technology. And we combine biofeedback and also behavioral medicine into interventions related to pain, chronic pain, and anxiety.
Jessica Koo Kim. I'm the Senior Director of Workforce Development at LAEDC, and we recognize in order to have a thriving medtech industry and our other industries and employers, we also need to concentrate on our workforce and education system. And so I get to strategically partner across our entire complex, large workforce and education system in LA County to help them be demand-driven, industry responsive, adaptable, and future-oriented, and then working with our business and industry partners to connect. So we strengthen local talent pipelines. We ensure that our education system is teaching the competencies that our businesses need, as well as building new talent pipelines and leveraging all of the public resources available, all of the different workforce models available to help employers connect to local talent and help our local talent thrive with our local companies.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for your introductions. So let's start off with a simple big picture question. And I think I talked about getting closer to the patient and personalization. When you're talking about that topic, it really requires a significant focus in one key area, and that is engagement. So Evangelist, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how Applied VR really focuses on the engagement component to make sure that you're able to deliver some of that visualization.
Absolutely. This is a critical component for every therapeutic, because you need to build rapport and build a sense of trust with the patients and the health providers. So what we're doing at Applied VR is quite complex, but we're doing it very well. There's a power that comes with the use of virtual reality. We overtake your senses and we create alternate realities in order to change your behavior, study your behavior, and understand how an intervention can help you through your journey. And we understand that there is a whole complex system out there already in place, the healthcare system, and we work with every partner in that equation to make sure that what we're developing as intervention can fit well with the narrative that is already established. Because you can create an amazing product that improves efficacy, but if it's not something that has engagement also with the doctors and the health providers, and carry along every stakeholder into a narrative that makes sense and carries this therapeutic value to the patient, will eventually become a failure.
So the partners you're talking about, members of the provider community or other groups within the space?
Yeah, including the FDA, payers. We have our technology already on board in 250 plus hospitals around the country. We're doing a lot of clinical studies. We have focus group with patients. We understand end-to-end how to develop these innovative technologies and bring them to market. And also to another degree, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that, virtual reality is within the umbrella of hedonic media. It's an entertainment vehicle. So it's not just that we're developing an app and you have your smartphone and all that. You're already in that synthetic environment that we create, and entertainment is an aspect of this engagement. So if you think about just the pure medicine, for us, that cannot be just the driving force. That needs to be paired with engagement and build this narrative where patients understand well the benefits that they're harvesting and why they're going along in that journey. And to carry along somebody in that journey, entertainment is an aspect of engagement, at least in what we're doing in virtual reality.
So entertainment gets roped into the offering as well. Elias, do you have any thoughts on this area?
Well, for us, we're in a bit of a different place because our device originally was offered primarily to cardiologists. So the sensor set and the validation was all done, and it was being provided to physicians and clinicians. And it was a very complicated interface. It was hard to engage as the user with the data. And so the founders of BioStrap basically took the device, took all of that, brought it in, and made it a consumer-facing app that you can have on your smart device. But what we have been finding is that with the going to that direct-to-consumer and engaging them, unless they're a prosumer, the data is too complex necessarily for them to engage directly. And so we're now looking at how we can maybe hybridize our business model so that we're working more with professionals who can, communicate the value of this data to the direct user, because most people just want, like their Fitbit to just do something really quick, or their Apple Watch to do something really quick and give them, something, or even possibly gamify, the health data. And that's what the user wants. But health is complex. So the wearable data is complex. HRV is a very complex metric. It's not cut or dry. It doesn't mean this or that. And so it's hard to tell the user that and engage them. So you need some help. You need a professional to take the data, communicate it to the user, and be able to, as you were talking about with Sophia, like have that engagement, have that professional, have that human element in there. So I think just going from an app to the user is maybe not the best way for us moving forward. We need to find a person to help us along the way. And so I think that's really interesting because we're so into technology today. We think technology has all the answers. And I'm starting to feel like we're swinging the other way and realizing technology got us to a certain place, but we need people. We need humans to help us know what to do with this technology. And so that's where we are right now, and we're trying to figure out exactly how to navigate that and partner with the right professionals, the right groups.
And any thoughts in terms of bridging that gap or graduating, if you will, the patient from a wearable, which is some, like a Fitbit you mentioned, or a Garmin device, which sometimes tends to be more of a fad that they leave aside, to something that is more serious, like the devices that you're developing?
And that's why we have we've built out now web population dashboards. So basically we can have a clinician monitoring countless numbers of patients or people. And we're even looking actually, because clinicians and physicians are risk mitigators, this data is not, the technology is still being developed in some ways. I mean, our data is more clinical, but it's also, I'll give you a quick example. Who here has a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or uses some type of biometric testing, okay? So all of you probably love the fact that you just hit the thing and it tells you something, right? But the reality is that data is not that accurate. There's no requirement for it to be. So what we do is we take the raw data, we send it to a server to get processed and feed it back to the app. But guess what? It doesn't happen in real time. It takes time. And so most consumers don't want that. We're in this era of like instantaneous gratification. So for us to use our cloud computing, we're going to give you better data, but you have to want that. You have to want the good data. And so I think like I said, that's why we need those professionals, and we need them to interpret the data and then maybe even be kind of to a certain degree prescriptive from it, because they're the professionals with the expertise. I can create AI that could prescribe, not directly prescribe, but come up with some ideas for them or gamify it. But I'm thinking would rather educate people, fitness professionals, clinicians, physicians, to use that data based on their expertise. I think that's the better way for us to move forward.
Thank you. I also have a wearable that tracks my inactivity most of the time. But there's another technology device that I have, right? It's a smartphone. And you did the raise your hand, so who in here has a smartphone? Right? It's about 99% of the folks in here have a smartphone. And I read something very interesting. The computing power in a smartphone today is millions of times more powerful than the computing power of NASA in 1969. So for the millennials in the room, that's when we landed on the moon, 1969. I can't really think of using this device to land anything on a planet, so we're only using a portion of the technology. So is there a benefit of not being everything to everyone and really focusing, and as we think about why we're here, focusing on a specific intervention and personalization? So Cav, I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, so I think the nature of the question is like why we did what we did, right? So we formed the company in 2013. We built a movement detection algorithm that could take multiple sensors, and we could detect what people are doing, how many times they're doing it, how well they're doing it. We did some work with Samsung, we did some work with NOSH, with Lululemon and some other groups, but the market didn't really take off. Like if you're looking at the wearable market right now, Fitbit stock was down 85% since IPO. Jawbone somehow burned through $500 million making a $10 device over in China. So it's really interesting to see how the space has evolved. And the Apple Watch is still just tracking steps, stairs, and sleep, right? So the market wasn't there for us, even when we were trying to move into things like gunfire, right? So we explored a lot of different marketplaces, and it wasn't until 2016 that we started seeing pressure in the medical space for bundled care, specifically around total joint replacement. And a lot of the insight came from inbound activity for us from Zimmer Biomet, from DePuy, from DonJoy, the brace company, from Breg, the brace company, all at the same time. But within about 4 weeks, we had some emails coming from these groups. So we knew that physical therapy might be a play for us in the future. We just weren't sure when or how. And in looking at the space, we realized that there was a focus on knee replacement, right? So knee replacement, and correct me if I'm wrong in these numbers, represents about maybe 54% of the surgeries in joint replacement, but represents about 60 to 70% of the revenue. And at the same time, the reason that all this pressure was coming down hospital systems to reduce their costs is because there's massive disparities. Anyone here that knows healthcare will know that it's kind of been capitalism at its best for a little while. So what you were seeing is in Ada, Oklahoma, they were performing a knee surgery for $5,300, and in Monterey Park, California, it was $223,000. right? And Medicare is covering the cost of 64% of all knee surgeries in the United States. So for us, in looking at the space and looking at physical therapy, looking at what the pressure center was, we said, okay, knee is a great place to start because there's all this pressure now for hospital systems to hopefully adapt what they're doing, especially now that you're seeing bundled care start come into the space. When I say bundled care, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand if you don't. Got you. Essentially what it does is it caps profitability, right? So whereas before Monterey Park was saying, hey, we're billing $223,000 for this, now Medicare is like, we're only going to give you 30 grand. If the patient comes back in 90 days after the surgery, has to have an MUA, a manipulation under anesthesia, has to have a readmit where they have to have another surgery, anything they come back for, the hospital is responsible for. So right now you're playing not with an opportunity to increase hospital profitability, but hopefully lower their costs underneath that bundle. And for us, it was an easy play because we could say with things like skilled nursing facility, home health, post-operative rehab, it represents between 29 and 39% of the whole care experience for the patient, which is really just too high. That's a story for another time. And what we also found is that we could be in prehab. The nice thing about prehabilitation before the surgery is now, as far as costing the hospital system, we're outside the bundle. So now that 30 grand, let's say we charge $500, now we don't negatively affect that $30,000. We're essentially a quote-unquote free device that doesn't negatively affect profitability. So very long answer to your fairly short question, but it was a journey for us to figure out where we had to play and where we had a market fit, and it's really this giant spinning wheel right now that's finally coming about to reduce the cost of healthcare that put us in the place that we are now.
And I think of that, that aspect has a very big impact, right? It's, how do we reduce the overall cost of healthcare? And a lot of the interventions that you guys have do that by, speeding up the diagnosis. But a lot of it also has to do with the adoption for the technology or the interventions that you had. Nicole, you had a chance to talk already, and we saw the slides in terms of the success that you've had not only in the U.S., but outside. What challenges do you still find amongst customers, either in the U.S. or abroad, for technologies like what Sophia is offering?
I think it's truly in understanding the power of not just education in the patient journey, but also what that data means to them and how to utilize it. I think they're realizing now what it means to query that data and have access to that data as an institution. As an example, Sophia will give you metrics to say how many times has your institution as a whole seen this type of variant, but also as a global perspective. They're not used to that type of traditional, they're used to getting a report back from a laboratory that says, hey, this is where it is, and this is perhaps, what you could look to doing. I think they have to start bridging the gap and realizing that their departments, when we look at multidisciplinary approaches, how all of this information can feed into that patient journey and be more preventative and proactive, specifically with cancer. And we talk about, we've seen that shift from an inpatient, right, where it was treated 5, 6, 7 years ago to now in an outpatient setting because they don't want these readmissions. They don't, it's the ability for them to be able to harness this data to save the time and save the money and have better outcomes in the future for these patients so that it informs those decisions up front.
And I think what we've heard from some of the panelists up to this point, right, is the interventions and the implications they have on technology and the implications that they have on the process. So, for example, how did you decide to choose that particular market? The third component is obviously the people, right? And I think in light of the comments that were made earlier, in light of the local community, one of the things that I've often heard from working with early stage companies and growth stage companies is that they can't necessarily find the right people locally because they're competing with the big names that we all seem to have heard, right? The Facebooks, the Googles, the Apples that are up in the Bay Area. And that is a constant struggle for these companies. So I would like to hear a little bit from you guys, and then we'll let Jessica comment based on some of the responses that you guys might have. How easy, how difficult has it been to recruit the right talent to support the technologies and the processes that you guys have put in place? Dr. V will start with you.
Absolutely, yes. So as part of my personal development and journey, I'm associated with USC, and I'm teaching their course in virtual reality at the Viterbo School of Engineering. So amazing talent around, and academia offers us a big deposit of talent to harvest the talent at the early stages and mentor them in new areas of expertise. So as part of my personal mission is to develop this native understanding of virtual reality at that level that will benefit the sector at large. In parallel now, virtual reality, as I said, is related to entertainment, and there isn't a better place in the world to actually position yourself at the crossroads of medical and entertainment, like Los Angeles. So we're privileged in that sense because we can harvest a lot of talent that will bring the scientific evidence-based approach that we have on how to design these digital therapeutics in virtual reality and actually implement them with high standards. What we see around is like a lot of companies that are situated elsewhere in the world. They understand somehow how the thing could work, but they fail in the execution. So for us, it's very important to, first of all, understand the science, look at big data, the evidence-based approach, understand the model and the therapy that somebody can design in virtual reality, and then implement it right. And we're privileged also to be at in Los Angeles, at this amazing county that, as we've seen at the map, there's so much going on in terms of biomed. So in our post-Series A journey, we're surrounded by experts, and we could harvest that talent. And actually, Cedars-Sinai was a great partner at our early stage. And we're able to really find the talent that we needed in order to create a narrative that made sense and deliver products that are efficient and effective, but also, as I said before, connect all the dots across the healthcare ecosystem.
So I'm hearing with the maturity of the company, right, with Applied VR, you're also able to draw on more domain experience so that you have the right expertise to carry you to the next level.
Absolutely.
Elias, any thoughts?
Well, prior to my role of VP of Strategic Development for BioStrap, I was in sort of talent development and management, so as a consultant, so I have a lot of experience in this. And our current team at BioStrap is very international, and as I said, we came from a medical wearable, and we were able to kind of take some of the talent from that company and bring them into BioStrap. So, but a lot of our team is very scattered. We're very global in terms of how we're currently operating. But as we're looking to scale our business right now, we are looking to grow, and I've been speaking to the CEO about this, is very much about expanding our team in this local area. So we are looking for, where we are working right now, we've brought on a couple people locally to start working with us. And I think one of the things that's great about what we're trying to do is we're going to partner with a lot of, say, local fitness centers, but we need them to be, in terms of the education and knowledge side, to understand what is HRV. How do you understand these biomarkers? How do you understand technology? How do you understand cloud computing? And how do you put that all together to serve the population you work with? So those people are actually more difficult to find than you might think in terms of the biomarker and biometric understanding. So that's something we maybe struggle with a little bit in terms of finding talent. As far as a company, I feel very confident that the talent is in LA that we need. So I'm not, as much as we can, we are definitely looking here. Some of our top data scientists and the high level, it's still a small world, wearable technology, of what we're doing in this sense. And the experts, like we have somebody we're bringing on as an HRV expert consulting with us, and that's the best person I could find, happened to be based in Canada, for example. So you have to find that talent where they are as well. So you kind of got to do both,
Yeah, and I think that's very consistent with what I've heard, right? In situations in which there's, large demands in the workforce, people go to these remote models, and they do represent the challenge, especially when you're an earlier stage company and you're trying to develop a corporate culture or, a reason for being. And there is a benefit to having everybody here. I agree. I think there's a lot of talent here. I'd like to hear from Paul and Cap, see if they have any thoughts, and then we'll let.
You mind if I go? So we're basically born and bred in LA. I was actually raised in Atlanta, moved out to LA to work for Vans for a little while in Hermosa Beach when they had an office down there. Moved away and spent 7.5 years convincing my wife to come back to the South Bay. Basically started the company out of business school, knew we were going to come to LA, built the team here, and for a while we had a Qualcomm engineer taking the train every day up from San Diego to downtown where our office was down there. So even though we didn't recruit directly from LA, there is a pull to be here, right? Like he had to want to work for our company and to get on a train every day. Since then, we've hired more engineers from other places and then brought them into LA. We have had to use the four-letter word outsource, but it's really because we were forced to, right? So when you go into Santa Monica development team, you're going to get $50,000, $80,000 was the quote we were receiving. When I go to Macedonia or something like that, I'm getting $16,000, right, for the same work. It's very hard to go to my investors and say, like, I just have to spend this locally, right, especially when you're strapped the way we are. At the same time, we've used other groups like in other states, right? So I think one of the things that California can benefit from potentially is like having hubs of expertise that you could reach where like it's not in Santa Monica and it's not in like the areas that are extremely expensive from a cost of living perspective, like where you're getting quality work and like you're not hurting yourself from the management aspect of managing an international team where oftentimes it takes twice the communication and the work to do it. I think if you haven't done it before, it kind of hurts you in the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're obviously at a little bit more of a hyper growth stage with where we're at as a company as a whole. And as I alluded to, 40% of our personnel are in R&D. And that hub is, of course, Switzerland. I mean, our founders, our co-founders are all scientists, biologists, et cetera. Veronica, one of my peers here in this room, was the first representative of SOFIA here in California and on the West Coast, and myself being the second. We just hired our third. We're trying to establish feet on the ground here and a presence that goes beyond just those subject matter experts or those data scientists or the actual bioinformaticians themselves, so that there's a person behind the name of SOFIA, so that we're out representing it, we're out presenting it and engaging in a marketing aspect and a business development aspect and bringing more visibility to the opportunity for institutions to work with us. So as we're growing and evolving, it's exciting times for us to be one of the founders of the West Coast, I would say, and we're excited for the new recruits that we're bringing in on a day-to-day basis out here.
Yeah, so I love listening to employers talk about their workforce needs. I think MedTech really exemplifies what we see the change in our economy. So it's the knowledge intensity, the capital, the intellectual property that's really driving the production of our economy. And so when I listen to this, I mean, bells go off in my head. So when we talk about startups and leveraging our California Employment Training Panel dollars to upskill your current workforce, that could be a partner. I heard cloud computing, and in LA County, our community colleges have partnered with Amazon Web Services, Educate to do cloud computing, as an AR, VR, and the labs that are available at our universities and our community colleges who have invested in the technology to have that ability. And so when we think about this industry, and really the crux of it is the demand. So whether it's really high skill, it's entry level, it's that cross-disciplinary team, I get the joy of then listening and turning to our workforce and education partners, many of which are in the room, to then align and strategically align that. But I would say, especially when we are companies and we're in that startup phase, that workforce component is so important to start to develop it and tap into a lot of the resources that are available to help you thrive. So for any of the company, I could dig deeper later. I know we're a little short on time, so that's where I'll leave it.
Great, thanks. And I think the other thing is, like Dr. Parham was doing a little bit earlier, making sure that we convey what are the type of programs that are available locally, right? Because, I didn't know about the occupational therapy program before today.
I didn't know about the orthotic program, which I would love to talk to you about.
I'd be remiss to not share this. So my husband left Google, got his master's in occupational therapy at Cal State Dominguez, as well as I did. And moved into being a practitioner in occupational therapy, and then moved into med devices and med tech. And so when we think about workforces, how do we get kids and students really excited and knowledgeable about these opportunities and reduce time to competency and really strengthen those pathways?
Great, thanks. Well, I've been asking you guys questions, and the audience has been pretty quiet, so I know there's a burning question up here. She's like signaling it.
Oh, thank you so much for your presentation. And when you think about students and when you think about universities and some of the income that comes into the universities happen to center around research and grant funding from the government, and how we empower students to be prepared for, either startups, entrepreneurship, or working for companies. I'd like for you, if you could, tell us a little bit about your maturation, your discovery process, and if you pivoted in developing your product, how much time did you use in your discovery process to understand the needs of the customer and the customer from a macro, micro level?
I can start because the mother company of Applied VR is a company called LRW that does market research. So we started from there. We started understanding the needs and then creating the technologies to meet the needs. For me, coming from academia, that was a novel approach because we're driven by innovation. We're driven by pushing the boundaries and creating new exciting things and bring them to light. But when you connect the dots end to end and you see how education can lead to prosperity through a path of innovation and productization, then you need to be more mindful about the needs. So for us, we spent quite a significant amount of time and effort into looking at big data and understanding where opportunity lies, what is underserved, how our technology can best serve a need, and then build the resources around it to support this endeavor. So it's a combination of innovation that you have in hand and opportunity combined with data and research.
Can I ask the nature of your question? Because you started off asking about grants and then moved into consumer research. Yeah.
So on a university level, a lot of students, if they are going to become entrepreneurs or even go into business, but they want to innovate themselves, to get grant funding to do the research. And a part of that grant funding to do the research is to do discovery of customer needs on a macro and micro level. And I would assume that you guys did do market research or market evidence to prove that your product should be developed and be able to move into the market.
Yeah.
So that's what I was wondering is, in terms of your discovery, did you research or interview other customers before you did market rollout to see the need of your product and the benefits that your product would be able to do?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I think it's called having a hobby and not having a business. If you just make a thing that you like to make, right? You need someone that's going to buy it, usually a decent sample set. And as a startup, as an entrepreneur, you don't have massive amounts of information you have access to. So you try to do small sample sets and then spread it out so you get some idea of what feedback is. I think the issue for a lot of us up here is that our customer isn't one person, right? Like, it's not the patient. You have patients, you have provider. For me, I have DME, I've got hospital systems. We're selling into like Select Orthopedics, which are distributors for products. It's understanding just how all these different pieces play together, and it does take a lot of time because each of them kind of wants their own cut and they have their own need. So really, before we even got to the point where we started submitting for the final product, like, all of it kind of had to run at the same time. We're kind of laying the tracks as we're going a little bit, which is the startup mentality. We had to have an understanding for how we're going to fit into these places and what needs we're going to be meeting. And in some cases, you're going to say you can't meet this need because this guy really needs this, and I don't have to care about your need because his need overrides yours, right? So it all depends how different people play with each other.
I mean, I could just answer this maybe really quickly in one sense, is that if you look at the wearable space, the fitness wearable space specifically, it's expected to be worth about $63 billion by 2023. So even if you were to capture, say, 3% of the market or 3% of the market, you could be $1 billion company. So, you know, in a way, you don't need to do a lot of research if that's the space you're trying to get into. But the problem is that at the same time, you're playing against the big players, right? And the big players in the space, and you mentioned some of the people already went down in flames that were pretty big. Right. So it's a challenging space. It takes a lot of money to get into some of these wearable technologies. So it's definitely challenging. So we know the need is there. We know the customers are there. It's figuring out how are we going to shave our market share of that and differentiate ourselves in a crowded marketplace and show the value. So that's really the challenge. And if you wanted to start up today and get into wearables, it's really difficult, I'll be quite honest, because, you know, it's not, it looks like, oh, you know, $63 billion, I'm going to start a business. Yeah. It's not easy right now. You need a couple $1 million just to even get the algorithms and the technology figured out. So you got to have some money. You can't start up and bootstrap it, really, quite easily. It's a difficult space.
Great, thanks, Elise. Other questions in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Pompilio. I am from Roadrunner Media, which is what I'm starting myself. So I hear a lot of you talking about the patient care, getting closer to the patient with your product. Do you, any of you hire as consultants, nurses, or practitioners, healthcare professionals to come on and help you with that? In marketing, in your actual hands-on. I know it's a niche, and I just started working with a couple of companies because I'm rather unique because I have a writing background as well as over 20 years of nursing background in all forms. So, yeah.
I can start with that. We absolutely, as we're scaling our team here in America, we have a clinical liaison or subject matter experts, as we classify them, that come from medical backgrounds that can have those peer-to-peer discussions and that engage at that level from a clinical experience and can bring in that knowledge and expertise and educate on, again, where the workflow and the technology fits into the day-to-day patient interface and care and how they can translate that data into actionable insights and measurables day-to-day on the healthcare provider level. So absolutely.
Yeah, pharmaceutical companies, I used to work for AstraZeneca as a clinical nurse consultant. And we also had a liaison as well, which a lot of either doctors, either nurses can, or
yeah.
Great. I mean, it seems it also depends on the maturity of the company, right? Initially, you might have a technologist who developed a great technology, and as they have a product to demo, then they need the additional clinical expertise.
When you go into the critical route, like when you have a DMR,
right.
That you're at 4 o'clock and you're at the last patient, you're
right.
out, you go into Los Angeles traffic, and your computer shuts down.
Right.
And you're like, who developed this?
Right.
Certainly not a
just to mention something from our perspective, not only we're interested in, and we have people from the medical space in our medical branch, but also we're hiring patients because, for example, one of the big endeavors that we had is in chronic pain, and there are a lot of programmers that have chronic pain. So that was one of the criteria to say, can we get what we want in a package that they're self-motivated to drive the efficacy of our products.
Right, and that's a huge part. That's a growing field as well, because I know some professional patients that go around and speak, they get hired on this company, and go into clinical areas and teach physicians and new residents how to interact with patients. So yeah, that is another growing area as well.
Great. Go with the last question.
First of all, thank you all so much for coming to speak with us. It's an inspiring entrepreneur myself. My question is, in the space in particular, what's the interplay with insurance? How do you get past insurance and bypass it? I know the growing market of concierge medicine. Yeah. That's a way to get around it in life. But I think that by getting in insurance, obviously it can cause hypergrowth or get your amazing technology and products to a widespread variety of healthcare patients. So I'd love to know a little bit more about how you tackled that or did.
That's all right. So basically, we started with a Cleveland Clinic study that showed that we could measure accurately, and then we showed with another separate study that we could increase the compliance to physical therapy by 100%, right? Further than the norm. We thought that was enough to be able to walk into systems and say, hey, we're going to help you reduce your costs, save you time, save you money. Didn't matter. Didn't matter, like, and from a concierge approach, yes, actually, like the Dr. Andrews of the world, like the Dr. Lemax, the guys, the athletes are flying to do the surgeries. That's a market for us, but it's not the biggest market. So the biggest problem that we had was how are we going to be reimbursable, right? And when you look at the space right now, for us, what we had to do, essentially, was create a code. Well, we didn't build our own code, but we had to create a product that fit into a current code, right? What we found was that the L1833 code had double upright hinges. We don't need hinges in our brace, right? But we put it in there, got the approval, so now we're an approved device that very easily slides into a system that is fairly antiquated and doesn't adapt quickly. You do have the new CPT remote patient monitoring codes, right? The new 99,000 codes, which have been in effect for a while. They've been used in respiratory and they've been used in cardiac, but they've been proven out in ortho. So what we're looking at is the potential to use these codes where hospital systems can make another $300 by monitoring the patients on like a monthly basis, but they just haven't been proven out. And for us, when it was announced, we're like, oh, great. They had these codes out there. They'll just type them in, boom, done, right? We even built a way for them to monitor how long they've been watching their patients. It's not that easy, right? So really what we had to do first was say, what system do you have now that works for you? We give braces out. Okay, we'll make a brace, right? And that became what we had to do to get into the system. Do I think it'll evolve? Absolutely. And to the nurse question, I just wanted to mention this. Mercy Healthcare System in St. Louis has basically a digital healthcare group where you come in and you wear scrubs, but you don't go into a hospital. You sit behind screens all day and you monitor patients. I think that is going to be a really interesting employment opportunity in the future, whether we'll do it or not, where you have people monitoring patients on a daily basis, because now there's a reimbursement opportunity for that, which is way above minimum wage.
And we can actually do that. We can give you that data so that you can be sitting there on your screen and looking at how well they slept, how well are they recovered, are they ready for what type of treatment might be the best treatment for them on a given day. So it's like coming back to the personalization. Yeah. On that particular day, I have a very low recovery score, so if I'm going for physical therapy, I should be doing something that's very recovery and regenerating my body rather than pushing my body because my neurology, my physiology isn't ready to be pushed on that given day. And that's the whole circle back to personalization. And that's where we need to get, because right now, you think it would be a no-brainer, hey, we can help these guys prevent people from being sick, and they should just be all over it, but they're not. It's just not there yet. It's, as you said, so complex to fit into that system. You'd think it would be obvious, and as an entrepreneur, you're like, hey, I have a problem, I can solve it. Yeah, I wish it was that easy.
And it's market specific, like ours is a Medicare market. Like if we had a product that would appeal to a different type of market, different type of consumer, we could maybe take the Goop approach, where we just kind of use flashy marketing and then get celebrities and influencers and that type of thing, which is a path, right? Like arguably there's medicine out there where people are buying tons of it, but that's not where we wanted to go. We wanted to be efficacious.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to thank our panelists. Please, let's give them a big round of applause. And we'll turn it back over to Bill.
Wow, you can see why we're so bullish on our health tech and med tech and biotech community here in Los Angeles County. Remember those names: BioStrap, Sophia Genetics, Focus Motion, and Applied VR. What extraordinary ideas, technologies, processes, innovations they are generating here and around the world. We want you to know about these companies. We want you to help us promote these companies. We want you to help promote and engage in the innovation that is underway all across Los Angeles County. And we can't do it without partners, forward-looking partners like Cal State Dominguez Hills, who since the very beginning of this Future Forum thought it was important not only for their institution to better understand where our economy was going and how they could tailor their programs and initiatives and courses and curriculum to meet the needs of that, but they wanted to share that with the broader educational community here so that all of our colleges and universities could adapt their curriculum to be more industry-driven and demand-responsive and forward-looking. So thank you again to Dr. Parham and his colleagues at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Thank you to Juan Jose for moderating such a great conversation, to each and every one of our panelists for the insights they've shared with us this morning and for the extraordinary work they're doing that is helping us grow our economy and improve our lives here and throughout the world. If you want a tour of this magnificent facility, please stick around with us. We're going to do a brief tour so we can still get you all out of here while we still have valet parking service available to help you with your cars. We hope you'll take with you the copy of the Healthcare Services Report that was created by our LAEDC Institute for Applied Economics for even more deep dive analysis of the labor market associated with the broader healthcare services industry cluster in our region. We hope you'll join us at the Eddie Awards. I don't know if we have a slide about that, where we honor Dr. Parham, Cal State Dominguez Hills, and other extraordinary corporate and government leaders in Los Angeles County on November 7. And we also hope you'll be back with us for our next Future Forum in January, on January 22nd, on space commercialization. We appreciate what each and every one of you do each day to help grow this sector and other sectors of our economy, to help prepare the workforce, to help create opportunity for others. You're helping us advance our mission. We're grateful to you for that and for being here and giving our speakers your attention today. Everybody keep up the great work. Go out and have a wonderful day. Thank you.